Hi, my name is Lumin and this is the second video in a 2-video series designed to teach you how to use the Play-agricola.com website. If you haven't watched the first video, which focused on learning the interface and building a record of solo games, I strongly suggest you do that now. You can find a link to it in the description below. The main reason to watch that one first is because I'm going to assume that you've already learned how to use the interface as explained in that video. This video will make a lot more sense if you've already tried or practiced using the interface in solo games as recommended in that video. This video concentrates on additional knowledge and conventions used when playing multiplayer games on Play-agricola.com. As you watch, you should keep an eye out for 3 things. First, how to appropriately mark resources, points, and cards. Second, reading and responding to chat. And third, chat conventions for announcing things like feeding or card benefits. The point of all of these is the same, to make the game flow more smoothly and quickly. And this video tries to show you examples of the different types of these actions. So for instance, I'll show you how to use the food connoisseur occupation, which gives you an extra resource when you take food. But the same conventions apply to a whole category of occupations that allow you to stack resources that you can gain in the future. And I'll show you the passing miner read exchange, not because it's a wonderful card, but because it's a passing miner which needs to be paid for by hand or manually. It's emblematic of many cards. I've tried to pick cards that represent the various types of cards and actions that you'll often play or see played in games. So with that said, let's get started with multiplayer games. We see that in room 15 there are 3 players waiting for a game. Let's go to room 15. Let's click enter the room. And here indeed we have 3 players waiting for a 4-player game. These games often have requirements, such as requiring that you be a registered player and that certain number of plays, perhaps 20. And these games have those requirements so that they can be sure that people playing the game will have that interface experience that's so necessary. Now that we're in the room, we join the game. So of course, pick your favorite color, mine is green, and press join. So now we've joined a game created by not Lumin, and also playing with us will be other player 1 and also not Lumin. So soon, not Lumin will begin the game. So just like the solo game, we click enter game, and then our windows will pop up. Now instead of 3 windows, we have 6 now. We have our original game board and our hand, just as previously, but now along with our own farm, we have everybody else's farm board. So now we've entered the game, and I've reorganized my windows to my liking. The cards for the draft are up here on the main game board, and we have our first pack of 9 cards to choose from. So draft 9 is usually what's played on the website. It's the most common variant. To do this, we're going to left click a card and click take. This moves the card from the main game board to our hand. When we pass our cards, we'll pass them to the blue player who is on our right, as seen on the main game window. Because we're not actually at a tabletop, there's no clockwise circle to go in, so instead we go left to right on the digital version. When I click done, this pack of cards passes to blue, and I'll get the previous pack of cards from white after white has made one selection from the pack. So here we have our pack from white, and just like the previous pack, we left click our favorite card and select take. Clicking done passes the pack along. Sometimes the dialog box will show up with an error message, but just press done again and things will resolve themselves. So once again, let's pick a card. I think this one will do just fine. So just like in real life, sometimes in the draft you're waiting for one player to pick all their cards. Here the red player we see has 4 packs of cards in front of them, so we just need to wait for the red player to do their picking. If the player is taking a long time, there's no harm in asking in chat if everything's okay. So I'm going to ask red, is everything okay? And we get a quick response from red saying that it's just a tough decision. So we now jump ahead to our last occupation pick, and I think I'll take the award winner here. And once we take our last occupation, now that we have 7, the minor improvements will automatically appear, and then the whole process repeats again, just like the occupations. So for example, I'll take the goose pond and pass this pack along. So now we're here with our last minor improvement pick, and after we make a pick, let's take the read exchange, then the game should automatically start if everybody else is done drafting, and they are. And we see also not Lumin, the blue player on our right, is the first player, which means we're going 4th. So the game is started, and the blue player is the starting player as evidenced by this yellow square on top of their name. So they've already announced that they're playing the rancher occupation, which will let them get a wood for every round that they lead in the least unused spaces. and so blue will now end their turn. When they end their turn, we see that their peep is on the free occupation spot, and they've added the rancher to their farm. Now it's the red player's turn, and we see that they're announcing that they're playing the wood collector occupation, which will give them a wood for the next 5 rounds. When red ends their turn, you'll see wood on the next 5 rounds, like so. Red is putting their wood in the bottom right corner of each round, and this is the typical convention if you're in the last position on the main game board. For instance, white would place their items in the top left corner, I would put mine in the top right, blue would put theirs in the bottom left, and red puts theirs in the bottom right. So now it's the white player's turn, and play will continue just like that. Fast forward to the end of the round and talk about a couple things. So here we are with the last action of round 1, and with this action I'll show you how to do a passing card in the multiplayer game. So I'm going to drag my peep to start player, and I'm going to play the minor improvement read exchange. So I'm going to play it to my board so I can announce it, and then manually take the effect of it because there's no automatic way to do this. So I'll subtract 2 wood from my own farm and add 2 reed by clicking R twice, and then I'll end my turn. So you see also that the starting player indicator automatically moved from the blue player to mine. To also finish the effect of the read exchange, I need to pass it, and while we see the icon on the card passing left, again, the next player is on our right in this digital version of the game. So we're going to throw the card to the board and place it on top of the blue player's name so they know to take it. So now I can start the next round. We see also at the start of the round that the blue player announces plus wood for their rancher because they qualify for that wood. And also we'll see the red player in the bottom right corner pick up their wood when it becomes their turn. So we'll start new round, and round 2 is major or minor improvement, and we'll go on read stone food. With the next turn, we'll see this card removed from the board by the blue player, and play continues as normal. Now here in round 2, we see that the red player has played an occupation, the food connoisseur. And the food connoisseur is one of those occupations that lets you stack resources and take them off at certain times. So whenever they use day labor, fishing, or traveling players, the red player will take the top item off their stack and announce it in chat. The red player has helpfully put a fence piece here to remind everyone that this is their stack. So as a reminder, we want to stack items on the board and not our own farms because of the pay for all function. And the pay for all function will inadvertently take resources off your stacks instead of your supply. So we'll begin our turn and play an occupation, the master cook. So the master cook is an occupation that creates an action on the board just for me. So I'll want to copy this card and add it to the board so that I can signify on my turns when I use the master cook's ability. So I'm going to begin my turn and place my peep on the occupation spot. Of course, I have to pay a food. And to add a card to the board, I'm going to left click a card and send it to the board and put it on where round 15 action space would be. Now the shortcut is to click on your own hand and refresh the window. And this automatically recreates the card in your hand. So now I'll play it as usual and announce it in chat and end my turn. Here we come back to round 6, and to use the master cook with my first action, I'm going to begin my turn and drag my peep right onto the master cook. The effect of the master cook gives me 2 food and a guest to use later in the round, so I do this by clicking on my farm, giving myself 2 Fs for food, and a guest with K. And then I'll end my turn. So now before our next move in round 6, we want to notice a couple things. The red player has built a room and taken fishing with their 2 actions. They announced the room with their first action by typing it in chat, as is customary. And with their fishing action, they also announced that they get an extra food and an extra wood. The food came from their fish trap, and the wood came from the second good on the food connoisseur. We also want to notice that the white player took the plow action and added a guest to their farm, and this is because of their forest farmer occupation. And the forest farmer lets you jump from the plow a field space to any other space right before the next round starts by paying a wood. This happens 3 times in the game, and to do this, white has added the fuel marker, which you might recognize from Farmers of the Moor, and started it at 3. This is their second use of forest farmer, so they've decremented their marker by 2 already, and it's at 1. So this is how we know that there's only 1 use of the forest farmer left after this round. Here we find ourselves in round 8, and it's finally time for us to take family growth. So we see the turn before us, the white player took starting player and played the mini pasture. Now the mini pasture is a passing minor that allows the player to fence a space in their farmyard. So by convention, even though the arrows pass left, again, downstream is to the right in this version, so the white player put the mini pasture on top of my name. So now I'll add it to my hand and move on with my turn. So I'll begin the turn drag my peep to family growth, and as a reminder, the second peep is automatically generated for you, and we get to play a minor improvement. Now, the minor improvement I'm going to play is called Witch's Dance Ground. It's from the France deck, so I'll announce it and then show you what it does. The card says, place this card on or beside your farm, and if I place it on my farm, I can cover 2 orthogonally adjacent unused spaces. So there's a trick to doing this, and it involves some tiles used in Farmers of the Moor. So if I press 3 or 4, we get a forest tile or a moor tile, and in the expansion these automatically count as used spaces but have no other function for the base game, except that the automatic score recognizes that they count as used. So this is how I would show that Witch's Dance Ground is covering up 2 spaces on my farm. The other option is to have Witch's Dance Ground extend your farm by 2 spaces, and I would add a marker where I would want those 2 spaces if I elected that. But for this purpose, I'm not using that function of Witch's Dance Ground. Additionally, I have a card out called the Mastermind, which gives me a bonus point for every card that has this bonus point symbol. So as a reminder, we'll click Shift J on top of Mastermind to add a bonus point, and I'll end my turn. Secondarily, the blue player has a card that lets them convert resources to food when family growth happens, and they announce it in chat when they do this. Now towards the end of round 11, and I'll show you the last couple moves of this round. So I'll begin my turn, and here I'm going to plow. In the last couple of rounds, I played the ground pickaxe plow, and this plow lets me plow up to 3 fields once during the game on either of the plow spots. But to do this, I have to place 1 wood from my supply on 1 or 2 orthogonally adjacent spaces to that plow space. So for example, I'll go on plow, and if I want to plow 3 fields, I have to subtract 2 wood from my own farm and place wood by using Shift plus W on 2 of these spaces next to the plow. So for this example, I'm going to put a wood on the grain and a wood on the expense of occupation, and thus I've paid the cost of plowing 2 fields with the ground pickaxe plow. So I'll plow 3 fields by using the I hotkey and pressing Shift to have them appear where my cursor is. And I'll also announce in chat that I'm plowing 3 fields, and I'll end my turn. Now we've skipped ahead to my next move, and in the meantime, I want to note something. The red player took starting player and played a card called Winter Deadwood, and then announced in chat plus W. So Winter Deadwood is one of the cards that has an option of what to do. So with this card, you pay a wood for a bonus point or receive wood and pass the card along. So by announcing plus W in chat, he's saying that he took the wood, the second option, and passed the card along to white, and that's what happened. So now I'll begin my turn, and I'll show you the effect of the Social Climber, which is my second occupation. So I'm going to renovate, and it's important to note that I'm the first one to renovate to stone. So I'll renovate to stone and pay for all first. And then the effect of the Social Climber is that when you're the first player to renovate to the next level, you receive 3 stone. So I'm going to take 3 stone. I'm also going to announce in chat that I'm renovating and that I get 3 stone as a result. I also get a major or minor improvement, and for this I'll play the pottery by dragging it from the major board and announcing it in chat. I'll also select pay for all here to deduct the right resources and end my turn. So now we've skipped ahead just a bit into the last action of round 11, where red took 1 cow and gets an extra grain from their Outrider. As a reminder, Outrider is the card that gives you an extra grain when you use the most recent round card. So this is one other thing you have to announce in chat. We now see that red has another cow and grain compared to their previous move. As a side note, they can hold 2 different animals in their house, thanks to Kids Corner. We owe 6 food, and I want to show you how to convert resources to food and announce that in chat. So along the way, I've built the Basket Maker's Workshop and the pottery, which allow you to convert reed and clay to 3 and 2 food each respectively once per harvest. So to do this, it's just manual. So I'm going to subtract a clay and subtract a reed from my supply and give myself 5 food. And then I can feed 6 food as normal. Now I do need to announce this in chat. So an example of how to do this would be to say convert 1C, 1R to 5F and then feed 6 food. And that's how you would announce using a resource guild or some other means that's non-traditional to feed your family. We're now in round 13 and ready to take our second move. In the meantime, the blue player has taken fences with their first action and announced that they're fencing 12. We see that they haven't done that action in terms of what their farm looks like right here. They still have most of their wood, but this is a convention normally done online to save time, because if blue takes the time to build all their fences and then end their turn, it takes more time, and instead they can usually fence while the next player's turn is happening. So we can announce, Blue, can you send farm? And Blue will happily send their farm. Now they've sent their farm and we can see which configuration they fenced in. This is an example of a larger point I want to make, and it's that your farm is only automatically sent when you end your turn. For any changes after your move, you have to announce it in chat and then send your farm by going to Controls, Send Farm. And the dialog box saying data sent will show up, and that's how you know your farm has been updated and sent to other players. This is very important so that other players know what state your farm is in. So now we've zoomed ahead to the end of the game. All players have harvested, fed, and bred, and now we've marked up the points on our farms. So bonus points for white, myself, blue, and red are all shown now, and we're announcing in chat our scores for the end of the game. Hit T, that's the shortcut for scorecard, and we see that we have 41 plus whatever bonus points we have. We've accounted for gardening enthusiast, and our bonus points for mastermind is 4. So I'll put in chat 41 base plus 4 equals 45, and of course good game to everybody playing. And it looks like blue, also not Lumin, won with 54, so we'll congratulate them as well. So now that the game is ended, blue will report all the scores through the dialog box that we saw in the solo game, and that'll be the end of the game. Well, now you've gone through some solo games and have seen some of the multiplayer conventions. There are many small things that come up once in a while. We've covered some already, but for the sake of review, I'll demo a few less frequently used things here. First, if you want to more closely read a card played on your farm, you can click it and zoom in. Like so. For other cards, or other farms, you can zoom in the same way by clicking on it and selecting zoom in. Second, for all hotkeys, adding the shift key will place the item where your cursor is. For example, if I want a field on the center spot, I press shift before pressing the key for field. You can use K to add a guest. This will add a guest in your house. The J key is used to mark points on cards, either for bonus points or those not automatically scored by the site. So for example, if I play Clay Worker, I'll add a bonus point to Tutor by pressing J. The 1 key is also used as a marker, often to indicate number of uses or number of uses remaining, like for the Forest Farmer. For instance, the Forest Farmer says place 3 arrow markers on this card, so I'll use the 1 key and put 3 markers on the Forest Farmer. The 3 and 4 keys allow you to mark a space as used for cards like Bonfire or Backyard Well, seen there. The benefit is that the site scoring recognizes a space with this tile on it as used and doesn't score it as a negative. The L key allows you to place a pink dot on your farm or board. This is just another marker for reminding or counting, and is often used to indicate that a good will be variably placed on future round spaces, for example, like the food from Absinthe seen there. So I would place the food like so. I'm putting the dot in the center of the round space rather than in a corner to signify that the food doesn't necessarily belong to any one of the players, but needs to be placed at the start of the round. Sometimes you'll need a random number. For example, occupations such as the Perpetual Student, which allows you to play a random occupation, or the Veterinarian, which allows you to randomly draw 2 animals and get one if they match, require a random draw. To do this, you simply type /random, followed by 2 numbers, how many random numbers you want, a space, and out of how many possible numbers there are. So for instance, /random1 space 6 will get you a random number between 1 and 6, just like rolling a die. Here, we would roll a 1. Just make sure you predefine the outcomes and tell the other players what means what before you generate the numbers. For the Perpetual Student, the convention is to order your occupations alphabetically. So, for example, here, if you randomly generated a 1, you would play the occupation in your hand that's first alphabetically. For the Veterinarian, you would stack your animals on the board and start off by letting 1 represent the top animal and 9 represent the bottom animal. Here, /random2 space 9 gets us 2 numbers between 1 and 9. Here it would be 4 and 9, which is a sheep and a cow, which don't match, so we wouldn't get an animal. Once you're in games, you'll notice that some players have meeple-shaped playing pieces and fancier resources. This is a reward for those who have donated to the site. Rumor has it that donators get family growth when they want it more often. As I've mentioned before, if you forget any of this seldom used stuff, It's totally fine to ask the other players in chat how to do it or how it's normally done. As long as you know the main details of the interface, everyone will be happy to help out with the edge cases. Now, some last thoughts. Some of these come from a post from user jfulltime, linked below in the description. First, it's super important to pay attention to the chat box. This will let you know what cards the other players have played. It's also a place where the other players could ask you questions like, can you renovate? Or how did you play that improvement? Being able to ask questions and get quick responses improves the flow of the game. Rules questions are also addressed in chat. For instance, you could ask a question on how a card may be used and the other players will likely help you out. Remember that they are currently more experienced than you, so they likely know the cards a bit better. Also, don't hold up the game arguing a rule. Usually disputes will be settled by a majority vote of the players. If the vote goes against you, move on. It's just a game. Second, always be polite and respectful. This goes a long way and people will remember it. Don't ever rage quit a game. Quitting a game wastes everyone's time and players will remember. If you rage quit, even just once, you'll probably have issues getting into another game. Feel free to ask more experienced players questions if you're unsure. If you're polite and respectful, people will be more than willing to explain things to you. Remember that most people on Play-agricola.com have a lot more experience at this game than you do. So, it probably makes sense to go with their rules interpretations for a while. If they're all saying the same thing, then they're likely correct. Go with it and move on. Later, you can check the rules compendium and the forums, which are linked in the description below. Lastly, don't forget to have fun, and I'll see you on the site.